have Rishi Bandhu, who is delegating on the topic of board's consultation obligations with respect to policy developments. Welcome, Rishi.
I do appreciate the opportunity.
And I'll just remind you quickly, first of all, you have to put your mic, when you talk, there's a little red light come on that will know that you are being recorded, or we can amplify your voice. Again, reminding you 5 minutes that you have. Please be mindful of the language that you use, the topics that you cover. I will give you the signal at 1 minute if you are getting close to the end and following the delegation. Again, as always, I will open the floor to trustees for 10 minutes for questions of clarification. 1 minute, and when you are ready, you can let me know and you can start.
I'm ready. Thank you for the opportunity to delegate tonight. I have 5 key points that I would like to make today, largely centered on the role of school council. Number 1, the HDSB is accountable to the parents through school councils. Section 2 of Regulation 61200, the purpose of school council is to enhance the accountability of the educational system to parents through their active participation. You are the educational system. School council is a check and a balance. Unions are a check and a balance. Checks and balance exist in any system of governance to remedy intended and unintended abuses of power. Number 2, school council is independent of the board. There have been repeated comments from board members that they will continue to attend council meetings and interject, including to call order. The board does not call order at a council meeting. The elected chair does that. The composition of council under section 3.1 of the regulation includes teachers, a staff member, the principal, but it excludes board members and employees. Section 3.6 of regulation 612 prohibits members of a board from being a member of council. This provision exists for a reason. Council operates independently of the board, reinforcing the idea that council operates as a check and a balance. Number 3, there is no restriction on the scope of school council's advisory capacity. Section 20 of Regulation 61200 provides that school council may advise the principal or the school or the board on any matter. I repeat, any matter. I've seen statements from this board that school council can advise on certain matters or matters within its jurisdiction, and not with respect to employees. There is no basis for that. You cannot prevent parents from issuing feedback or recommendations with respect to their own children. Now, I will note, and I've said this before, and I would like to be heard on this. Boards do not have to accept council's recommendations. Councils cannot dictate the board's decision-making. You are the employer. But it can and should influence the board so that the interests of children are kept at the forefront of decision-making. Number 4, the HDSB is obliged to ensure that school council members are democratically elected. Section 171.17.1 of the Act requires boards to establish council in accordance with the regulations. Section 4.4 of the regulation requires an election in accordance with bylaws. There is a constitution that exists at Oakville Trafalgar High School that was never disclosed to us despite our requests. That constitution requires an election prior to the election of chairs by the council itself. In the case of OT, voting members were not elected, they were acclaimed. Chairs were acclaimed before the voting members were acclaimed. This is improper. Chairs are to be elected by the voting members. A system that appoints its executives first and then the voting members breeds autocracy. In the case of OT, we in fact have an elected executive body that is not reflective of the wishes of the parents. The board has not established school council in accordance with the Act. This must change going forward. It's not an answer that we disregard the law and establish council in the most expedient manner if there are insufficient candidates for council. If there are not enough parents stepping up, the board needs to do more to discharge its statutory obligation. You have the resources and tools, use them. This professionalism policy was unnecessary. All you needed to do was affirm the values and beliefs contained in the student dress code. That's all that was required. In November, you rejected a teacher dress code on the basis that it was unnecessary because the norms of the student dress code applied to the teachers. Why are we going through this process? It's unnecessary. All of this could have been avoided months ago by applying the student dress code. I would like an explanation as to why we're going through this. In conclusion, please stop disregarding your legal obligations. Most importantly, your primary fiduciary duty is to our children. All of your decisions should be guided by a concern for our children. If the union doesn't like it, they can grieve.
Thank you, Rishi.
An arbitrator decides the matter.
Rishi,
if you lose, we will support you. At least you're standing up for our children.
Thank you, Rishi. So, thank you. Thank you so much, Rishi. So just to be aware that this is out of the scope of the trustees. So this would be something that you would take up with your parent, with your principal at your school. But we do have a question from Trustee Collard.
Thank you. I don't actually have a question. I wanted to.
So, all right, I'm going to call a recess and I'm going to ask some of the people to leave the room. Thank you. Thank you. Kevin, I've called a recess. I don't know if you heard me. Thank you. You had no question, or you did? Yes. Trustee Collard.
Thank you. I wanted to thank you for your delegation. I'm unclear as to what happened when your school council was formed, but I have been a school council chair many, many years before becoming a trustee, and I'm very much aware that the elected members are the ones who choose the chair. So I'm sorry to hear that that didn't happen in your case. I don't know what happened at your school, but that is not what normally would happen at a school. And I've been involved in many, many schools during my tenure as a trustee, and I've never heard of that happening before. So this is an anomaly, and I'm sorry that that happened.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Rocha.
Thank you, Rishi. You came here this evening to talk about school council, and I know you used the word board in your delegation. In this room right now, there are two boards. There's the Board of Trustees, and there's the HDSB board. When it comes to school councils, it is outside of our purview as the Board of Trustees. So what you delegated on does fall within the operations side of the board. So what I can tell you is, as trustees, we're not able to comment on all of the statutes that you provided from the Ed Act, but we are surrounded by superintendents in this room who do have portfolios of schools, who are very familiar with their school councils. So my recommendation would be to work with your principal and with your superintendent to iron out these issues. I'd love to be able to help you, but that is outside of our scope as trustees.
So, and to be clear, my message is for the Halton District School Board.
Thank you. Yeah.
We haven't been heard. We haven't been heard. We haven't been heard by the principal. We haven't been heard by the superintendent. So we are availing ourselves of every opportunity we can to make our point. I've issued a number of letters. They don't get responded to, or they're responded to in a way that's not meaningful. So I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak to all of you, to members of the board, Mr. Ennis, and we want to be heard. That's all that we're asking for. So maybe the process isn't quite appropriate for trustees, but we're going to avail ourselves of every opportunity that we can to be heard, and this was that opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, Rishi. Thank you so much for coming. This is not on the agenda for this evening, so it doesn't really pertain to anything specifically, but again, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. There are items that are policies that come into play that might be of interest to you, but nothing specifically to the points that you were raised, but thank you so much for coming and sharing your view.
Okay, thank you.